When I reviewed um, No Cover by Sierra Whiskey and Donald DeLay, I compared the John Malin character of No Cover to Odysseus. And I didn't know at the time that was going to be life foreshadowing life, because when I finished Omega Storm, all I could think about was the hero's journey. Joseph effing Campbell. There's going to be a lot of talk about the shock value in Omega Storm, and I'm going to get to that myself. But I want to spend some time straight up talking about Joseph effing Campbell and the hero's journey, man, because that I think has kind of been lost in the 21st century. Think about some of the great sagas that we all grew up on. It's the journey, not the destination. You've got to get to the main confrontation with the big bad. I'm thinking right now of Tolkien, and I mean, it took him 3 fucking books just to get to Mount Doom, or whatever that translated to in film. I think it was like 17 hours of film to get to Mount Doom. And I don't want to sound like a old guy, bitching about kids these days, or audiences these days, but we have lost our sense of patience with stories, with sagas. We want it's the Transformers, Michael Bay kind of scenario. We want the big action sequence on page 1. We want the confrontation right away. We want it to start with an explosion. And what you lose in that is just the build up to the climax. In Omega Storm, the journey that our heroes in Castle Dracula have to take to get to the old ones, to get to the old gods, to get to the Lovecraftian realm that they're gonna stage their last battle for humanity. I want to say that it was like I think Malin said that it was like a year that they were going to be away, or something comparable. It's a long journey to get where they're going, and all the things that you would expect to happen on a long journey. This is where character development comes from. All the things that you would expect to happen on a long journey happen on the Castle Dracula. The tempers get frayed, frustrations build, personality alliances form and are broken and form again. It's a build up that works as a story device because you get more and more filled with anticipation. But it also works from a character point of view because you don't learn much about you learn a little bit, but you don't learn much about characters during a fight scene. You learn about the characters in the build up to the fight scene. Omega Storm is a very thick book, and it's meant to be thick. It almost takes the reader on the same journey as the heroes. So by the time you get to the Lovecraftian dimension, I mean, you're almost chomping at the bit. In preparation for reading Omega Storm, went back to book 1 and reread the entire franchise. And that I think that was a good move on my part because all of these characters were more three dimensional to me for doing that than they would have been if I just picked the book up. Now there are a lot. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of new characters in Omega Storm. Omega Storm introduces a lot of people that we haven't seen before, or that we've seen, briefly in supplements. But I have more of a feel for the Professor Blood in this story than I would have had if I hadn't gone back and read them all. He's a very complex character. He's leading this mission to save humanity, even though humanity has not embraced him or his team. So there's kind of an X-Men, vibe to it. Sworn to save a humanity that hates and fears them kind of mode. But yeah, you've got a vast panoply of characters here that it would have been easy for them to just. I used to love the Legion of Superheroes, and one thing that wasn't present through the years, it got a lot more present in the late '80s and '90s, particularly when Tom and Mary Bierbaum had their run on the book. In the early days, the Legionnaires all had interchangeable personalities. Each male Legionnaire was just sort of generic lad, and each female Legionnaire was just sort of generic lass in terms of personality. But when the Bierbaums took over, suddenly every member of this team with a humongous cast had their own personality, their own foibles, their own goals, their own achievements and things they were trying to achieve. It would be very easy with the vast panoply of characters in Omega Storm to have it be nothing but faces and costumes that don't really come to life until the next fight scene. And because the cast is so big, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are cast members we didn't get the chance to meet. But I know a lot more people from the world of Graveyard Shift now than I did before I read the book. And that's after reading, 4 volumes of Graveyard Shift and however many 3 supplements leading up to it. Yeah, I had a good take on the world of Graveyard Shift, but I know more people in it now. So where I'm going with this is, from my point of view, great pacing, solid character work. And now I've got to get to the coup de grace. I won't spoil anything, except to say that I myself was spoiled. The internet unfortunately spoiled me for the big shocker at the end, but because all I did was glimpse it, there was an angle to the shocker that even I had not picked up on. And when I realized the full horror of what I was seeing, even being spoiled, I still felt violated fresh. I was freshly violated by that ending. So yeah, it's not Alfred Hitchcock for Psycho had that famous admonition that no one would be admitted to the cinema after the movie started, because you wanted to make sure that that the shock ending of Psycho was intact for every audience member. I could understand. It wasn't just puffery and it wasn't just advertising hype. I can understand why John was beating the bushes saying, don't spoil the ending. Don't spoil, because the ending leaves you feeling as though you have just been beaten to death. It's horrific, horrifying. Ugh. Um, I can't really say much more about it without spoiling it. Although I was stunned by I was stunned by what was happening, obviously, although that was the part that I kind of had an idea going in. I was stunned by the nature of who it was happening to. That's where I was really shocked. And I was surprised by where it was happening. That's about as much as I can say without spoiling it myself. And then the coup de grace, the icing on the gravy, the coupe de la boop was the dedication right after that shock. Um, I will say no more except to say that it was Chef's Kiss perfect. So yeah, that's your old pal Tommy's take on Omega Storm. It's a thick book. It took me most of an evening to read, and then with that added to me doing my binge rereading of Graveyard Shift, I more or less have been immersed in the Graveyard Shift world from the weekend until now, and it's been a zesty immersion. So that said, do what you need to do. Go get Omega Storm. All hail John Malin, the Joseph Campbell of comics. And not just that, but he's not wrong when he says that he's become Comicsgate's most talked about creator. Between Little Black Riding Hood and this, it's a 1-2 punch that would have taken out Smoking Joe Frazier. So get Omega Storm, catch yourself up on the doings of Graveyard Shift World, and tell them your Uncle Tommy sent you. This has been Tom Tuttle.